True evil is said to hide in plain sight, and in the well-known instance of Ted Bundy, this couldn't be more accurate. He appeared to be charming, attractive, wise, and charismatic. However, a cold-blooded killer who stalked, raped, killed, and dismembered his victims was hiding beneath this outward appearance. He later came back to further abuse the corpses. Although he admitted to murdering 30 young women and girls between 1974 and 1978 in 7 states, the precise number of his victims is unknown. His ex-girlfriend Elizabeth Klepfer republished her autobiography, The Phantom Prince: My Life with Ted Bundy, under the alias Elizabeth Liz Kendall in response to a resurgence of interest in these murders and the accounts of those who knew him well. Her daughter Molly contributed to this new edition, which also featured never-before-seen images. These images from their private collection offer a terrifying window into the psyche of a vicious murderer. Number 9. Ted on Vacation in Utah, 1970. This vacation picture was taken in Ogden, Utah in 1970, 4 years before Ted Bundy started his notoriously savage murdering spree. Ted is flanked by Liz and Molly on either side. Ted accompanied them when they visited their ancestral home before relocating to Seattle. Liz had just gone through a divorce and was struggling financially when she found employment as a receptionist at the University of Washington a year ago. Soon after arriving in Seattle, she ran into the handsome Ted in a bar. The two then started dating, which they did intermittently for about 7 years. Liz tolerated a lot of behavior that she now regrets because she was desperate for Molly to have a father figure in her life and someone to make her feel less lonely. Liz reflected, "If you could set away the fact that Ted Bundy was a terrible, homicidal monster, he also was a bad boyfriend, which is sort of hard to even think about. Some of the issues were the result of my outright codependence. I sincerely hope that ladies won't make the same mistake I did and simply accept treatment that isn't entirely honest." Number 8. Camping trip in the Pacific Northwest, 1970. In the Pacific Northwest, Ted and Liz took their first camping vacation together and thoroughly appreciated the outdoors. Later, Ted would make the Pacific Northwest, in particular Olympia and Seattle, one of his favorite locations for taking his victims' lives. Ted kidnapped Linda Ann Healy, age 21, in 1974 and killed her by strangling her. 1 month later, he abducted and killed Donna Gail Manson, 19, and kept the location of the body a secret. He had taken the lives of 6 more young ladies by September 1974. In July 1974, 2 victims were kidnapped in Lake Sammamish in King County, and witnesses told police they were looking for a handsome young man who called himself Ted. In addition, they discovered that he had utilized an arm sling to entice people to assist him in returning to his now famous VW Beetle. The image of Ted jumping joyfully in the mountains could not have predicted the darkness that would come. Before being imprisoned for his heinous crimes, this was his last year of freedom. Number 7. Ted awakens from a nap, 1971. An unhappy Ted who just got up from a nap, Liz wrote as the description for this picture. Years before Ted's murderous rampage peaked, the picture was taken near Green Lake, Seattle. It was clear that he was unable to conceal his mood changes any longer. Dr. Dorothy Lewis, a psychiatrist, spoke with Ted following his arrest and gave testimony at his court regarding his mental fitness. "I think he was experiencing a bipolar mood disorder resulting from manic depressive sickness," she said. Later, throughout future experiments, the public could observe these emotional changes. Ted ran around the courtroom, grinned for the cameras, and waved to the audience in the gallery. Later, he showed signs of being angry and disinterested in the matter. Ted's trial for the murder of Kimberly Leach in Lake City was transferred to Orlando. The court was unable to find an impartial jury as a result of pre-trial publicity. But more than any media attention, it was these outbursts and fits of hysteria that marred his character. The jury had a chance to witness Ted's true temperament for themselves. Number 6. Ted and Molly driving a boat, 1971. At age 3, Molly started to regard Ted as a father figure and looked forward to days spent with him. Molly has recalled unsettling recollections of her own, which she has described in the updated edition of her mother's biography, now that she realizes who the monster behind the mask truly was. When Ted was watching the kids one evening, Molly recalled them playing hide and seek together, but when she discovered him to be naked, she became terrified. "You're naked," Molly said with a frown. Ted replied, "I know, but that's because I can turn invisible, but my clothes can't, and I didn't want you to see me." I tried to push Ted out of the way, and comedically, Ted fell to the shower mat and sat cross-legged, hiding his penis with his 2 hands, Molly said. She finally understood that Ted had an erection at the moment when she remembered the memory in adulthood. She also documents, "Him leaving my room is the next thing I recall. I stayed up all night in anxiety, keeping an eye on the door, wishing he wouldn't return." No, he didn't. Number 5. Ted playing with neighborhood children, 1972. Ted can be seen playing in the street with a young Molly and her friends while taking in the sunshine in Seattle's University District. Ted experienced a difficult childhood. His mother was taught to be his sister, and his grandparents were taught to be his parents in his upbringing. In a facility in Burlington, Vermont for single moms, Ted was born on November 24, 1946. Eleanor Louise Cowell, the infant's mother, thought about placing the child for adoption, but her father, Ted's grandfather, asked that the child be brought back to their Philadelphia family home. Ted was brought up believing that his mother was his sister for the roughly 10 years that followed. Ann Rules quotes Ted in The Stranger Beside Me as saying, "Maybe I just figured out that there couldn't be a 20-year gap in age between a brother and a sister, because Louise always took care of me. I simply learned as I got older that she was indeed my mother." In later interviews, it was revealed that Ted had learned of his own origins as a result of a cousin making fun of him for having no known father listed on his birth certificate. Ted was plagued by this for the remainder of his adult life. Number 4. Ted is taking a nap, 1974. During a break over Christmas at Liz's old house in Ogden, Utah, this picture was captured as Ted awoke from a nap on her childhood bed. The terrible killings that would later shock the world started in 1974. Liz claimed that she had observed minute personality changes in him that made her feel as though she was losing him. There were 2 Bundys according to Kevin Sullivan, the author of The Bundy Murders, A Comprehensive History. The only individuals who ever saw the evil Bundy were those who were harmed by him. This is what makes 1974 so incredibly distinct. He was going to murder on a full-time basis and just kept doing it until he was apprehended or died. In later conversations with investigators, Ted said that the entity, a demonic presence that appeared anytime he was stressed and instructed him to attack women, controlled him. The strain would be too intense, and the demands and expectations of this creature would come to a point where they just could not be controlled, the serial killer admitted. Number 3. Molly playing with Ted's hair, 1975. "I adored this man. We were quite close," Molly said when she and her mother were interviewed on Nightline. When Liz fell pregnant in 1972 with Ted's child, they almost actually did start a family. But Liz made the challenging choice to have an abortion. According to Liz, "We both realized it would be difficult to have a baby today," in the book The Phantom Prince. "I had to be able to work so that I could support him because he was going to start law school in the fall. It was terrible," she continued. "Ted picked me up and put me to bed at home. When I wouldn't have to go to work and we had many children, he laid down next to me and chatted about that. He prepared meals for me that I was unable to consume and tried to make me feel better." Later on, Ted did have a daughter by the name of Rose, aka Rosa. While he was incarcerated, he had Rose with his wife, Carol Ann Boone. As of this writing, no one knows where Rose and her mother Carol are. Number 2. Ted and Liz in Utah, 1975. Eventually, a close friend of Liz's pushed her to talk to the police about her concerns regarding Ted. She had found several unusual objects, including a pair of crutches and some women's clothing that wasn't hers. Liz was subsequently questioned once more by Detective Robert D. Keppel following Ted's incarceration. Her claims were taken more seriously this time. Regarding the offenses, she disclosed he claimed to be ill and to be consumed by something he couldn't explain, and that he simply wasn't able to control it. He claimed that he made an effort and that maintaining a regular life required a lot of his time, which is why he was struggling in law school and couldn't seem to get his act together. And he claimed that he was distracted by this force, and that's why he just couldn't do it. He began by claiming he was ill and that he doesn't have a split personality. "I don't have blackouts, and I recall everything I've done." Number 1. Ted drinking on the courthouse steps, 1980. Ted broke into the Florida State University Chi Omega sorority house on January 15, 1978. He savagely killed Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman, both students. That evening, 3 additional young women were attacked but amazingly survived. His ultimate wicked deed was the murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. This was the serial killer's downfall, and these killings led to his execution via electric chair. U.S. District Judge G. Kendall Sharp forbade the defense side from arguing that Ted was incompetent during his initial trial throughout the 4-day hearing. They tried to make the case that Ted was given booze that was brought in illegally by his lover, Carol Ann Boone, and that he was also highly medicated with Valium and other drugs. Sharp disagreed, saying, "Ted is the most capable serial murderer in the country right now." Ted Bundy was put to death in the electric chair at Florida State Prison on January 24, 1989. Which image gave you shivers down your spine? Which backstory did you think was the creepiest? Please let us know in the comments section below, and be sure to subscribe for more amazing content.